The phone call that changed everything came on a Tuesday morning. I was sitting at my kitchen table, wedding magazines spread everywhere, when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Rosewood Estate. Miss Hart. This is Maria from Rosewood Estate. I'm calling about your inquiry regarding our venue for your October wedding. My heart jumped. This was it. The venue of my dreams was finally calling me back. I'm so sorry, but I have to inform you that the date you requested has already been booked by another party. The words hit me like ice water. But I called 2 weeks ago. You said you'd get back to me about availability. Yes, I remember. Unfortunately, another client secured the date with a deposit yesterday. A Miss Cassandra Blake. She mentioned she knew you, actually. Cassie. My best friend since childhood. The same Cassie who had helped me research venues. The same Cassie who knew how desperately I wanted Rosewood Estate. There must be some mistake, I whispered. But there wasn't. My best friend had stolen my dream wedding venue right out from under me. I met Cassie Blake when we were 7 years old. She moved into the house next door with her wealthy parents and their perfect landscaping. Even as kids, Cassie had this way of making everything about her. But she was also charming and fun, and I was thrilled to have such a glamorous best friend. 20 years later, she was still the same person. Beautiful, confident, and always getting what she wanted. When I got engaged to David 6 months ago, Cassie was the first person I called. Oh my God, Evelyn, this is so exciting, she had squealed over the phone. I can't wait to help you plan everything. We're going to make this the wedding of the century. She came over that very night with champagne and bridal magazines. We spent hours looking at venues, dresses, and flowers. I felt so lucky to have a best friend who cared so much about my happiness. Or so I thought. Sitting there with Maria's words echoing in my head, I realized I had been completely naive. Cassie hadn't been helping me plan my wedding. She had been gathering intelligence for her own. The worst part? She wasn't even engaged. I called Cassie immediately, my hands shaking as I dialed her number. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright and cheerful. Evelyn. Perfect timing. I have the most amazing news to share with you. Cassie, I just got off the phone with Rosewood Estate. They said you booked my wedding date. There was a pause. Then she laughed, but it sounded different than usual. Sharper. Oh, that. Well, funny story. Marcus proposed last night. Can you believe it? After 3 years of dating, he finally popped the question. Marcus was her on-and-off boyfriend who she complained about constantly. Just last week, she had called him boring and commitment-phobic. Congratulations, I managed to say. But Cassie, you knew I wanted that venue. We looked at it together. I know, sweetie, but when Marcus proposed, I just had to secure the best venue in town immediately. You understand, right? True love can't wait. My stomach dropped. This was really happening. My best friend was actually stealing my wedding venue and acting like it was perfectly normal. But Cassie, I showed you that venue first. I told you how much I loved it. Oh, Evelyn, don't be dramatic. It's just a venue. There are plenty of other places you can get married. That night, I couldn't sleep. David tried to comfort me, but I was beyond consolation. I kept replaying every conversation Cassie and I had about wedding planning. All those evenings we spent looking at venues online. All those times she encouraged me to take my time deciding. She had been planning this all along. The next morning brought another shock. I opened Instagram to find Cassie had posted a photo of herself at Rosewood Estate, posing in front of the gardens I had fallen in love with. The caption read, "Found my dream venue. Marcus and I are getting married here in October. So blessed." She had tagged me in the post. The comments were already pouring in. So beautiful. Congratulations. You're so lucky. I wanted to scream. I wanted to comment and tell everyone the truth. But what would I say? That my best friend stole my venue? It sounded petty and desperate, even though it was true. Instead, I called my mom, crying so hard I could barely speak. Honey, what's wrong? Is David okay? Mom, Cassie stole my wedding venue. She took the exact place I wanted and booked it for herself. There was silence on the other end. Finally, my mother said quietly, I never liked that girl. Too selfish. The next few days were a blur of desperate phone calls to other venues. Everything was either booked, too expensive, or completely wrong for what David and I had envisioned. Each rejection felt like another nail in the coffin of my dream wedding. Cassie, meanwhile, was documenting every moment of her sudden wedding planning spree on social media. Photos of cake tastings, dress shopping, flower arrangements. It was like watching someone live my life in fast forward. What bothered me most was how fake it all seemed. 3 days ago, she wasn't even engaged. Now she was acting like she had been planning this wedding for years. On Friday, she called me. Evelyn, I need to apologize. I've been so caught up in wedding excitement that I didn't realize how hurt you must be. Can we meet for coffee? I want to make this right. Against David's advice, I agreed. Maybe there was some explanation I was missing. Maybe this was all a terrible misunderstanding. We met at our usual cafe downtown. Cassie looked perfectly put together as always, wearing a new engagement ring that must have cost more than my car. I'm so glad you came, she said, hugging me tightly. I've missed you this week. For a moment, I felt hopeful. This was the Cassie I remembered. My best friend. Then she opened her mouth. I want you to be my maid of honor, Cassie announced, sliding a small wrapped box across the table. I know things have been weird between us, but you're my oldest friend. I can't imagine getting married without you by my side. I stared at the box, then at her face. She looked completely sincere, as if she genuinely didn't understand why I might be upset. Cassie, you stole my wedding venue. The venue I showed you. The one I was planning to book. She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, that. Look, Evelyn, I'll be honest with you. When Marcus proposed, my mother insisted we book the best venue immediately. She said girls like us need to secure the finest things quickly, before they get taken by people who can't really afford them anyway. The words hit me like a slap. Girls like us. People who can't really afford them. What do you mean, people like me? Cass's expression shifted slightly. The mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw something cold in her eyes. Come on, Evelyn. You know what I mean. Rosewood Estate costs $40,000 just for the venue rental. Your teacher salary and David's work at the auto shop. It's sweet that you were dreaming big, but let's be realistic. I felt my face burn with humiliation and anger. I had the money saved, Cassie. We've been planning for this for 2 years. She looked genuinely surprised. Really? Well, either way, it's too late now. But I promise you'll love being my maid of honor. The dress I picked out will look amazing on you. I left that coffee shop feeling like I was going to be sick. The casual cruelty in Cass's voice kept echoing in my head. People who can't really afford them anyway. As if I was some charity case who had gotten too big for my britches. David was waiting for me at home with takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant and a bottle of wine. He took one look at my face and pulled me into his arms. That bad? He asked gently. I told him everything. About the maid of honor request, about Cass's comments about money, about the way she acted like she was doing me a favor by crushing my dreams. She actually said people like you? David's jaw tightened. He had never liked Cassie much, but he had always been polite for my sake. She doesn't think we deserve a place like Rosewood Estate, I said, finally letting myself cry. 20 years of friendship, and she thinks I'm beneath her. David held me tighter. You know what, Evelyn? Maybe we dodged a bullet. Maybe we don't want to get married at a place that someone like her thinks she belongs. But it wasn't about the venue anymore. It was about the betrayal. It was about realizing that my best friend had never really seen me as an equal. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to be her maid of honor. I wasn't going to smile and pretend everything was fine. I was done with Cassandra Blake. The next week, Cassie's social media presence became unbearable. She posted constantly about wedding preparations, each photo more elaborate than the last. Designer dress shopping with her mother. Tastings at the most expensive catering companies in town. Flower arrangements that cost more than most people's monthly rent. But something felt off about the whole thing. The posts seemed desperate somehow, like she was trying too hard to prove something. And Marcus barely appeared in any of them. For a couple supposedly madly in love, he seemed remarkably absent from their wedding planning. My mom called me on Wednesday evening. Honey, I ran into your Aunt Sarah at the grocery store today. You know how she works at that fancy jewelry store downtown? I did know. Aunt Sarah had been selling engagement rings and wedding jewelry for 15 years. She said something interesting about your friend Cassie. Apparently, she came in last week trying to return that big engagement ring she's been showing off. Said it didn't fit properly. My heart skipped a beat. Return it. Sarah said the ring was purchased with a credit card that got declined when they tried to process the return. Cassie got very upset and left without the ring. I hung up the phone feeling confused. Why would Cassie try to return her engagement ring? And why would her credit card be declined? Something wasn't adding up. That weekend, I decided to do something I had never done before in our 20-year friendship. I started paying attention to the details of Cassie's life instead of just accepting everything she told me at face value. It started with small things. The designer handbags she carried always looked perfect, but when I looked closely at her Instagram photos, I noticed she never had the same bag twice. That was weird for someone who supposedly loved luxury goods. Her apartment, which she always described as expensive and exclusive, had furniture that looked beautiful in photos but cheap in person. The kind of stuff that looks good from a distance but falls apart quickly. And then there was Marcus. I had known him for 3 years, and he had never seemed like the type to propose with a $10,000 ring. He was practical, down-to-earth, and had always been cautious about money. I started looking at his social media too. While Cassie was posting constantly about wedding plans, Marcus's accounts were completely normal. Work photos, sports updates, pictures with friends. No mention of an engagement or wedding. In fact, the last photo he had posted with Cassie was from 3 weeks ago, and she looked annoyed in it. Something was very wrong with this picture. On Monday, I made a decision that I knew would probably destroy what was left of our friendship. I called Marcus directly. Hey, Marcus, it's Evelyn. Cassie's friend. I wanted to congratulate you on the engagement and talk about bachelor party planning. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Evelyn, I think there might be some confusion. Cassie and I broke up 2 weeks ago. My blood turned to ice. What? Yeah, it wasn't working out. We wanted different things. I thought she would have told you by now. I sat down hard in my kitchen chair. Marcus, she's been posting about wedding planning. She booked a venue. She's been showing off an engagement ring. Another long pause. That's concerning. We definitely never got engaged. And I definitely never bought her a ring. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, trying to process what I had just learned. Cassie wasn't engaged. There was no wedding. She had stolen my venue for a wedding that didn't exist. But why? What was the point of such an elaborate lie? And more importantly, how was she paying for all of this? A venue deposit alone would have been thousands of dollars. I was about to find out that Cassie's problems went much deeper than a fake engagement. That evening, David came home to find me pacing around our apartment like a caged animal. "Okay, what's going on? You've been acting strange all day." I told him about my conversation with Marcus. About the fake engagement, the non-existent wedding, and Cassie's elaborate social media lies. "So she stole your venue for a wedding that isn't happening?" David looked as confused as I felt. "It gets worse. I've been thinking about money all day. The venue deposit, the dress shopping, all those expensive vendor meetings she's been posting about. Where is she getting the money?" David sat down on our couch. "You think she's in financial trouble? I think she's been lying about more than just the engagement." That night, I did something I wasn't proud of. I started researching Cassie online like a private detective. Not just her social media, but public records, professional information, anything I could find. What I discovered shocked me. The marketing company where Cassie claimed to work as a senior executive, she had been let go 6 months ago. The fancy downtown apartment she always bragged about, she had been evicted for non-payment of rent and was now living with her parents. The designer lifestyle she flaunted on Instagram was completely fake. She was broke, unemployed, and apparently desperate enough to steal her best friend's wedding venue for a wedding that would never happen. But the story was about to get even worse. The next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. "Is this Evelyn Hart? This is Jennifer from Elegant Occasions Wedding Planning. I got your number from Cassandra Blake. She said you might be interested in our services." I was confused. "I'm sorry, but I think there's been a mistake. I'm not looking for a wedding planner right now." "Oh, that's strange. Ms. Blake hired us 2 weeks ago and listed you as a reference for payment verification. She said you could confirm her financial standing." My heart started racing. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. What exactly did she tell you about me?" "She said you were her business partner and could verify that she had the funds to pay our invoice. We sent the contract to the address she provided, but it came back undeliverable." After I hung up, my hands were shaking. Cassie was not only lying about her engagement and stealing my venue, she was using my name to try to secure wedding vendors she couldn't afford. This was getting dangerous. I called my cousin Jake, who worked in finance, and asked him to meet me for lunch. I needed advice, and Jake was good at understanding complicated financial situations. "She's running some kind of scam," Jake said after I explained everything. "Using your name as a reference, living off credit cards, stealing venues for fake weddings. This isn't just about hurting your feelings anymore, Evelyn. She could be committing fraud." That word hung in the air between us. Fraud. My best friend wasn't just selfish or competitive. She was desperate and potentially criminal. Over the next few days, more pieces of the puzzle fell into place. I learned that Cassie's parents had recently cut off her credit cards after discovering she had racked up over $50,000 in debt. The engagement ring she was flaunting, purchased with a credit card that had since been maxed out and closed. But the most shocking revelation came from an unexpected source. I was at the grocery store when I ran into Mrs. Patterson, who lived across the street from Cassie's family. Mrs. Patterson had always been a gossip, but this time I was grateful for her tendency to overshare. "Oh, Evelyn dear, I heard about Cassie's troubles. Such a shame when young people get in over their heads like that." "Troubles?" I tried to sound casual. "Well, with the police and everything. Her parents are beside themselves." "The police?" My blood ran cold. "What happened with the police?" Mrs. Patterson leaned in conspiratorially. "Identity theft, from what I heard. Someone at her old job filed charges. Something about credit cards and fake references. Her poor mother has been crying for days." I left the grocery store in a daze. Cassie wasn't just lying about her engagement or stealing my venue. She was apparently stealing other people's identities and credit information. The girl I had known since childhood, who I had trusted with my deepest secrets and biggest dreams, was turning into someone I didn't recognize at all. That weekend, everything started falling apart for Cassie at once. It began with a post on social media that was supposed to be another perfect wedding planning update, but instead revealed the cracks in her facade. She posted a photo of herself at a dress fitting with the caption, "Found the perfect dress. Can't wait to be Marcus's wife." Within an hour, Marcus had commented on the post, "Cassie, we broke up 2 weeks ago. Please stop posting about a wedding that isn't happening." The comment exploded across social media. Friends and family members started commenting, confused and concerned. Some people were asking if it was a joke. Others were expressing worry about Cassie's mental state. But Cassie's response made everything worse. Instead of explaining or apologizing, she doubled down. "Marcus is just having cold feet," she replied to his comment. "Wedding planning stress affects everyone differently. He'll come around." Marcus responded immediately, "Cassie, this is not normal. We are not engaged. There is no wedding. Please get help." Then he posted his own status. "For anyone wondering, Cassie Blake and I are not engaged and are not getting married. We broke up amicably 2 weeks ago. I'm concerned about some of the things she's been posting and hope she gets the support she needs." That post was shared hundreds of times within hours. Cassie's carefully constructed image of the perfect, envied bride-to-be crumbled in a single afternoon. But that was just the beginning of her very bad week. Monday brought news that sent shockwaves through Cassie's already crumbling world. The wedding planning company that had called me seeking payment verification filed a complaint with the police about potential fraud. It turned out that Cassie had not only used my name as a reference, but had also forged documents claiming she had a joint account with me containing $50,000. When the company tried to verify the account, they discovered it didn't exist. My phone rang constantly that day. Vendors, venues, and service providers all calling to verify information that Cassie had provided. She had apparently given my name and phone number to dozens of wedding-related businesses, claiming I was everything from her business partner to her financial advisor. The most disturbing call came from a catering company. "Ms. Hart, we have a contract signed by Cassandra Blake for her October wedding, but when we tried to process her deposit, the check bounced. She told us to call you for payment." "I'm not responsible for her payments," I said firmly. "That's not what she told us. She said you were jointly hosting the wedding and would be covering half the costs. We have documentation with your name on it." I asked them to email me the documents. When I opened them, I felt sick. Cassie had not only forged my signature, but had created fake contracts claiming I was co-hosting and financing her wedding. This wasn't just theft anymore. It was fraud on a massive scale. By Tuesday, word of Cassie's lies and financial troubles had spread throughout our social circle. The wedding planning fraud, the fake engagement, the bounced checks, everyone was talking about it. But instead of lying low and trying to fix the situation, Cassie seemed to be spiraling deeper into delusion. She posted on social media that the jealous people in her life were trying to sabotage her happiness. "Some people can't stand to see others succeed," she wrote. "But true love conquers all, and my wedding will be perfect despite the haters." The post received dozens of comments, but not the supportive ones she was expecting. People were asking direct questions. "Where is Marcus? Why are vendors saying you can't pay them? Why did you use your friend's name on contracts?" Instead of answering any of these questions, Cassie began blocking people. Anyone who questioned her story or expressed concern was immediately removed from her social media accounts. This only made things worse. People started screenshotting her posts and sharing them in group chats and on other platforms. The story of Cassie's fake wedding was becoming a cautionary tale about social media deception and financial fraud. But the final blow was still coming, and it would come from the most unexpected source. On Wednesday afternoon, I received a call from Rosewood Estate. "Ms. Hart, this is Maria. We spoke a few weeks ago about your wedding inquiry." "Yes, I remember. You said the date was taken by Cassandra Blake." "Well, that's actually why I'm calling. Ms. Blake's deposit check has bounced, and we haven't been able to reach her to resolve the payment issue. Since you were interested in the same date, I wanted to offer you the opportunity to secure the venue." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Her check bounced. "Yes, and according to our contract, if payment isn't resolved within 48 hours, the reservation is cancelled. Are you still interested in October 15th? I looked around my apartment at all the backup venue brochures I had collected, none of which excited me the way Rosewood Estate had. The venue of my dreams was suddenly available again. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "I'm very interested." "Wonderful. Can you come in this afternoon with a deposit?" 2 hours later, David and I were sitting in Maria's office, signing contracts for our dream venue. The very venue Cassie had stolen from me was now mine again, lost to her through her own dishonesty and financial irresponsibility. But I wasn't done learning about the extent of Cassie's deception. That evening, I got a text message from an unknown number. "Is this Evelyn Hart? This is Sarah Kim. I work with Marcus. Can we talk?" I had heard Marcus mention Sarah before. She was his co-worker and friend. We met at a coffee shop near her office. Sarah was around my age, professional looking, and clearly uncomfortable with what she was about to tell me. "I hope this isn't overstepping, but Marcus is really worried about Cassie and thought you should know what's been going on." "I'm listening," I said. "Cassie has been calling Marcus constantly since their breakup, sometimes 20 times a day. She's been showing up at his apartment, his workplace, and even his gym. Yesterday, she followed him to lunch and caused a scene when she saw him talking to me." Sarah pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot. "She's also been creating fake social media accounts to monitor his activity and sending messages to any woman he interacts with, claiming to be his fiancée. The messages were unhinged. Cassie was threatening other women to stay away from her man and making increasingly wild claims about their relationship. Marcus is considering a restraining order," Sarah continued. "But he's worried about her mental state. He thinks she might be having some kind of breakdown." As Sarah talked, I realized that stealing my venue had been just the tip of the iceberg. Cassie's entire life was unraveling, and she was lashing out at everyone around her. But the worst was yet to come. Friday morning brought the call I had been expecting but still dreaded. It was my mother. "Honey, I just got off the phone with Cassie's mother. Cassie was arrested last night." My stomach dropped. "Arrested for what?" "Identity theft and fraud. Apparently, she had been using stolen credit card information to make purchases and forge documents. The police found evidence in her bedroom." I sat down hard in my kitchen chair. Despite everything that had happened, despite all the lies and betrayal, hearing that Cassie had been arrested felt surreal. "Her mother is devastated," my mom continued. "She had no idea how bad things had gotten. The debt, the lies, the fake engagement, none of it." That afternoon, I learned more details from news reports and social media. Cassie had been running a sophisticated fraud operation, stealing personal information from former co-workers and clients to open credit accounts and make purchases. The investigation had been going on for months. The wedding planning, the venue theft, the fake engagement, it had all been part of a desperate attempt to maintain the illusion of success while her life fell apart behind the scenes. But even arrest didn't stop her from trying to control the narrative. From jail, Cassie managed to post on social media one final time before her accounts were suspended. The post was a rambling message claiming that she was the victim of a conspiracy. "I am being persecuted by jealous people who can't stand my success," she wrote. My enemies have turned my own family against me, but the truth will come out. My wedding will still happen, and everyone will see who I really am." The post was incoherent and desperate, but what struck me most was that even facing criminal charges, Cassie was still talking about her fake wedding as if it were real. Friends and family members began coming forward with their own stories of Cassie's lies and manipulation. College friends talked about money that went missing from their shared apartment. Former co-workers described credit cards that were mysteriously opened in their names. The picture that emerged was of someone who had been living a double life for years, maintaining an image of success and happiness while systematically deceiving and stealing from the people closest to her. But perhaps the most heartbreaking revelation came from her own parents. They released a statement through their lawyer saying they had been trying to get Cassie help for months after discovering her financial troubles, but she had refused treatment and instead escalated her deceptive behavior. "We are heartbroken by our daughter's actions and deeply sorry for anyone she has hurt," the statement read. "We hope she will finally accept the help she needs." The day of what should have been Cassie's wedding arrived with autumn sunshine and crisp October air. Instead of a bride getting ready for her dream wedding, Cassie was sitting in a jail cell awaiting trial. The irony wasn't lost on me. She had stolen my venue for a wedding that was never going to happen, with a groom who didn't exist, funded by money she didn't have. Meanwhile, David and I were putting the finishing touches on our actual wedding, which was still 2 weeks away. We had chosen a beautiful garden venue that, in retrospect, suited us much better than Rosewood Estate ever would have. But I couldn't help thinking about Cassie that day. 20 years of friendship didn't disappear overnight, even after everything she had done. I found myself wondering what had driven her to such desperate measures. When had the girl I grew up with, who used to share her Halloween candy with me and let me cry on her shoulder after my first heartbreak, become someone capable of such elaborate deception? The answer, I realized, was that she had probably always been capable of it. I just had never been the target before. The signs had been there for years, the way she always needed to be the center of attention, the way she competed with everyone around her, the way she seemed incapable of genuinely celebrating other people's successes. I had ignored those signs because I loved her, and because it was easier to believe that my best friend was the person she pretended to be rather than the person she actually was. A week later, I received an unexpected visitor. Cassie's mother, Mrs. Blake, stood at my door looking older and more tired than I had ever seen her. "Evelyn, I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I know everything that happened, and I needed to apologize in person." I invited her in and made tea. We sat in my living room, the same room where Cassie and I had spent countless evenings planning my wedding just months before. "I want you to know that we had no idea how bad things had gotten," Mrs. Blake said, tears in her eyes. "We knew she was struggling financially, and we had stopped giving her money hoping it would force her to be responsible. We never imagined she would do what she did." She told me that Cassie had been stealing from her own family for months. Forging checks, using their credit cards, even taking jewelry to pawn. They had only discovered the extent of her deception when the police searched their house. The wedding planning, the venue, we thought she was just having a hard time accepting her breakup with Marcus. "We had no idea she was using your name or forging documents." Mrs. Blake handed me an envelope. "This is a check for any expenses you incurred because of Cassie's actions. I know it doesn't undo the hurt she caused, but it's the least we can do." I looked at the check. It was more than enough to cover the deposit I had lost and the stress of finding a new venue. "Mrs. Blake, you don't need to do this. You're not responsible for Cassie's choices." But she insisted, and I could see that making this gesture was important to her own healing process. My wedding day dawned sunny and perfect. As I got ready in the bridal suite at our garden venue, surrounded by family and real friends, I thought about how different this day was from what I had originally planned. The venue was smaller and more intimate than Rosewood Estate, but it felt more like us. The flowers were simpler but more colorful. The whole celebration felt authentic in a way that my original plans, influenced by Cassie's opinions and preferences, never had. Most importantly, everyone there genuinely wanted to celebrate David and me. There was no drama, no competition, no hidden agendas. Just love and support from people who truly cared about our happiness. As I walked down the aisle to marry the man I loved, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in months. All of Cassie's manipulation and betrayal had led me to this moment, which was more beautiful than anything I could have planned with her help. During the reception, my maid of honor, my sister Emma, who had stepped in after I cut ties with Cassie, gave a speech that brought me to tears. Evelyn and David, your love story shows us that sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best outcomes. You faced betrayal and disappointment, but you didn't let it make you bitter or cynical. Instead, you focused on what really mattered, your love for each other and the support of people who truly care about you. As I looked around at the faces of everyone who had helped us through the difficult months, I realized Emma was right. Cassie's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also shown me who my real friends were. 6 months after my wedding, I learned that Cassie had been sentenced to 3 years in prison for identity theft and fraud. The local newspaper ran a small article about it, describing her as a woman who had lived a fantasy life funded by other people's stolen identities. Reading about it felt surreal. This was someone I had known for most of my life, reduced to a few paragraphs in a crime report. But what struck me most was a quote from the judge. The defendant showed a complete disregard for the people she hurt, viewing them only as tools to maintain her false lifestyle. Her actions destroyed trust and caused financial and emotional damage that will last for years. That summary captured something I had been struggling to understand. To Cassie, I had never really been a friend. I had been a tool. Someone useful for maintaining her image and providing her with opportunities to take what she wanted. The realization was painful, but also liberating. It meant that losing her friendship wasn't actually a loss at all. You can't lose something that was never real to begin with. David and I had settled into married life beautifully. We bought a house, adopted a dog, and built the quiet, authentic life we both wanted. The drama and chaos that had surrounded Cassie felt like a bad dream from another lifetime. Sometimes people asked me if I ever felt sorry for her. The honest answer was complicated. I felt sorry for the little girl who had been so desperate for attention and validation that she had grown into a woman incapable of genuine relationships. But I didn't regret the way things turned out. 2 years later, I was at the grocery store when I ran into Marcus. He looked happy and relaxed in a way I hadn't seen during the Cassie years. "Evelyn, how are you? How's married life?" We chatted for a few minutes about normal, pleasant things. He told me about his new job and his new girlfriend, Sarah, the coworker Cassie had harassed. They were talking about getting engaged. "You know," Marcus said as we were saying goodbye, "I never thanked you for calling me that day. When you told me what Cassie was posting about our fake wedding. You don't need to thank me for that." "No, I do. If you hadn't called, I might never have realized how far she had gone with the lies. It could have been so much worse." As I drove home that day, I reflected on how everyone's life had improved since Cassie's world collapsed. Marcus was in a healthy relationship. I was happily married. Even Cassie's parents seemed more at peace, no longer walking on eggshells around their daughter's unpredictable behavior. The only person who hadn't benefited from the truth coming out was Cassie herself. But that had been her choice. She had chosen lies over honesty, theft over work, manipulation over genuine relationships. When I got home, David was in the garden, planting flowers for spring. Our dog was helping by digging holes in completely different spots. It was a perfectly ordinary, perfectly happy moment. "How was your day?" David asked, kissing my cheek. "Good," I said, and I meant it. "Really good." I had learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just living well, surrounded by people who love you for who you really are. Cassie had stolen my venue, but I had gotten something much better, a life built on truth, love, and authentic relationships. Her world had collapsed, but mine had grown stronger than ever.